Hi, my name is Lucy and this is my Flosstube channel, Stitch to My Lou. And today I'm going to be filming the second half of my finish parade. And I think this half represents more of my current stitching style. So I hope that you are excited and thank you for joining me. If this is your first video, I think this is a good way to get a sense of who I am as a stitcher and what I like to stitch. And if you're returning from a previous video, thank you so much for coming back again. So like I said in my last video, the first part of my finish parade, my finishes fall into three categories. The first category is things that I've gifted, and I think I have photos of everything that I finished and gifted and gave away. Things that I have fully finished and displayed in my home. And then last but definitely not least, things that are in the box that I finished stitching but have not fully finished. And I think there's some shame associated with having a box, but also I'm mostly a process stitcher. I stitch because I love to stitch, and sometimes I like to decorate things, but mostly I just enjoy the act of stitching. But also I'm at a stage in my life where I'm moving pretty regularly. Like in the last 5 years, I've moved 3 or 4 times. And it is a lot easier to move a shoebox full of unfinished pieces than to move boxes full of frame finishes. So I really think this is a utility move. But yeah, I think with that, I will get right into it. So I've got my pile of finishes over here, and then I have my laptop here with my spreadsheet with all the information. So I'll do my best to provide information about the designers and the fabric if I have them. And then I'll also link the patterns in the description box if I'm able to find a link for them. So I think with that, we will get right into it. So we finished the first part of my whip parade with Crater Lake, which was my big full coverage. And then now we're getting into the things that I worked on after that. So first up, we have Close the Lid by Eccentric Avenue. I worked on this from January 25th to February 5th, 2024. And it is stitched on 16 count Icelandic blue Ada. It's just a manufacturer, it's not hand dyed. And this is from Eccentric Avenue on Etsy. I don't know if I said that already. I love this piece. I think it's funny. It looks just like my black cats. And I have it hanging in my bathroom. And this is one of my signature Lucy finishes where I just cut it and stuck it in there. And I think it got stained at some point, so maybe I should try to wash it, but it does the job. So I love that one. And next up, I have Life is Short, Lick the Bowl by Demented Stitchers on Etsy. And I stitched this as a gift for a friend. Evidently, I was doing some bathroom themed stitching. I stitched on that from February 5th to February 7th of 2024 on just a 14 count, slightly off-white, like tan Ada. And I'll have a picture of that. I did a signature Lucy finish for that as well. And then next up, I have this mini sunflower, which I got as a gift from my roommate. And it was a kit. It's one of those kits that you see in like bookstores. It's some brand that you see in a lot of non-stitching stores. But my roommate got this for me, which was very sweet. And I actually started this on Christmas Day of 2023 because I had gotten my sister a cross-stitch kit for Christmas that year. And I brought this along just as a way to teach her the basics of stitching. So it's pretty fun that my sister and I have both stitched on this together. And then I finished it later on in February of 2024. And this is just with all the kit materials. And this piece is kind of unique. I'm about to go on a rant, or not necessarily a rant. I'm about to go on a tangent. So buckle up if you are ready for that. This is one of my only pieces where all the X's are crossed the same way. And the reason for that is because I don't cross all my X's the same way, which I did not know until recently was so controversial. But basically when I started stitching my friend who taught me, she just taught me the basic stitch, and she never told me you're supposed to cross the X's in the same way. So I just, you know, developed a stitch pattern that worked for me. And when I jumped between colors, I would just, or when I traveled between stitches, I would just go to the closest square and start my next stitch. I was paying zero attention. So like most of the finishes in my first half, the X's were all over the place, no rhyme or reason. But at some point when I was working on Crater Lake, I realized that if I just stitch uninterrupted in a line or in a block, my top legs of my stitches alternate directions like this. And then in falling rows, the opposite in a grid. And I realized that when I do that, like my block stitching, I always thought looked pretty nice when the stitches alternated like that. So I just started doing that on purpose. Like I would line up my stitches so that the top legs would alternate in a grid pattern. And I think it looks kind of good. And I didn't even know until I joined Cross Stitch Reddit, like around when I was finishing up my Crater Lake. People would be new stitchers on there asking for advice, and people would respond to them and say, there are no rules in cross stitch, just make sure all your crosses go in the same direction. And I always thought that was silly because I was like, well, there are just no rules in cross stitch, period, because I'm clearly breaking that one. But yeah, my stitches alternate in a grid, and I never knew that that was so controversial, but I think it looks nice. I personally like the look of it and the texture of it, but also if you're looking from more than 6 inches away, I really don't think you can tell a difference. Maybe, yeah, unless you're really eagle-eyed. But also, I kind of like the texture of it, and I think it's kind of like my signature now at this point. I don't plan on changing. I feel like it's my signature. I don't date or initial my pieces, but I have my opposite direction crosses. So maybe that'll be my way of knowing that pieces were made by me. So yeah, that's my rant. Feel free to tell me that you think I'm crazy, but that's my truth. And I'm coming forward as the person who provided that hot take in Stephanie Cross Stitch the Globe's hot takes video. So end of rant, but this is my only piece where all the crosses go in the same way. And it's also worked on with my sister, so that is very fun. Next up, I stitched Kirby with knife from Crazy Stitch on Etsy. I worked on that from February 18th to February 21st of 2024 as a graduation gift for a friend, and that was also on that same Icelandic blue Ada, just the pale blue. I think I got a fat quarter of it or a fat half, and I just put a bunch of stuff on it, so you'll see it again. And then next up was Black Cat with Red Tulips from Box and Fox on Etsy. I worked on this from February 21st to March 10th of 2024, and I gave it to some friends as an Easter gift that year because they have a cat that looks exactly like that. This one was a fun practice of my block stitching and doing my crosses in the wrong ways. And then next up, I have this, which is One Size Fits All. This is a kit that I received as a gift from a company called Cat vs. Cute. And I stitched this in 2 days on March 15th and 16th of 2024. And I think this actually shows pretty well I don't know if you'll be able to see, but I think you can tell that my X is crossed in different directions here. But I just think this kit is so cute. I've had the measurements of this in my phone for a long time, trying to find a frame at the thrift store or something that will fit it, and I haven't found anything yet, but once I do, I look forward to framing it. But yeah, I think that one is so sweet. Next up, I have Data Portraits in Paris by Shaded Stitchery. And I actually just framed this a couple weeks ago, so it's actually framed with proper technique. I follow a tutorial from Elizabeth Ankin Stitch. One thing that I haven't quite figured out with my framing technique is how to make it fit into frames when you do the mat board, like the foam core board, and quilt batting on top, because it just makes it really thick, and then I don't know if you can tell, this one it barely fits, but some frames I just can't get them to fit inside. But I think this looks lovely. I plan to put it by my workspace because I am a statistician for my job and I make a lot of data visualizations. So that's what initially drew me to this project and why I love it so much. So I stitched on this from April 12th to 20th, 2024. And this fabric is Atomic Ranch Fabrics 16 count parchment Ada. And I love this pattern and I'm really excited for part 2 to come out next February. So stay tuned for that. I have my custom dyed, I purchased the floss pack, so I'm looking forward to that. Okay, next up I have Fun Gay from Bad Stitch, which I got as part of the Starlight Stitchery Pride fundraiser, which I think in 2023, maybe 2024. So Starlight Stitchery is an online needle workshop that's based out of Corvallis, Oregon, where I used to live. And one summer they did a fundraiser for a bunch of Pride-related charities, and a bunch of designers provided pieces for that. So I stitched this on May 10th and 11th of 2024, and it's again on a scrap of this blue 16 count Ada. So cute. I think I need to just find a tiny hoop for this or a tiny little frame. I have a lot of dreams of FFOing things, but I just don't often get around to it. All right, and next up I have Live in Full Bloom by Tiny Modernist, which I stitched on May 12th through 14th of 2024, and it's on a 14 count black Ada. And the holes in this Ada are really big, so you can probably see right through it. And then you can also see my white stitching right through it, but that's okay. I think it's fun. I like stitching on dark Ada and I like how the colors pop on it. And this, yeah, this is black 14 count Ada, and I got this as a freebie from Starlight Stitchery with one of my orders. So all the freebies I have are from them. And then my next project that I stitched on was Bigfoot Baking by SamBrie Stitches, which I also got as a freebie from Starlight Stitchery. I just thought this pattern was really cute and quirky. So I stitched that on May 15th of 2024. And this is actually the first project that I properly framed using the method from Elizabeth Ann Can Stitch. So I framed that and I gave it to my boyfriend, and he has it at his desk at work as a conversation starter. And that was on 14 count, just off-white tan Ada. And then next up, I have another freebie that I got in a Starlight Stitchery order. This is Rip It by Stitchy Prose. And I stitched on this from May 16th to 22nd, 2024. It's on it, again, this scrap of blue Ada. Pulling all these finishes out reminded me that I need to go through and trim all my fabric so that I can use the leftovers, but I haven't done that yet. And this was another freebie that I got from Starlight Stitchery in one of my orders. Next up is another item from the Pride bundle, the Pride Charity bundle. This is All the Colors by StitchSprout, which I worked on from June 2nd through 10th, 2024. And this is just on 16 count white Ada. And I think this is the first fully symmetrical pattern I stitched, and it was kind of fun getting to practice, like trying different stitch patterns. So really like that one. Maybe one day it will be framed. Next up, I stitched Queer Goth by the Witchy Stitcher. I worked on this from June 17th through 21st of 2024, and this is again part of that Starlight Stitchery Pride bundle, and it's on 16 count black Ada. And I love how the colors on this pop, and I really like how it looks on this black Ada. Okay, next up, Foul Language Warning. This is Fuck This Shit by Junebug and Darlin, which I believe is a local Portland-based company. And I received this kit as a gift from one of my friends for my birthday that year. And I worked on this from June 23rd through 27th, 2024. And I actually FFO'd it following the kit instructions. It's not perfect, but I think it looks pretty good. And at my old house, I had this hanging in our kitchen, but I haven't found a place for it yet since I moved. My next finish was Gathering Violets by Misty Purcell from Luminous Fiber Arts. I worked on that from June 21st through July 23rd of 2024. And I stitched that as a gift for one of my friends named Violet. And this was my first time using a specialty floss. So I used Amethyst by Dinky Dyes. So it's my first time stitching with silks and my first time stitching with variegation. So I got to practice lining up the colors. And I finished it in my uninformed framing way. I just cut it out and put it into a frame. But I really enjoyed stitching that for her, and I love giving gifts, love giving stitching as a gift. So my next finish was Peace for a Broken Earth by Lola Cross Stitch, which I got as a part of a fundraiser from Stitchers for Peace and the Stitchers Collective. It was a fundraiser for Doctors Without Borders, where a bunch of designers came together to support Doctors Without Borders, especially during all the stuff that's been going on in Palestine. So there are a lot of really great designs that came through there, and you'll see a few of those. This is currently on display at Acorns and Threads because there's a Lola Crow trunk show happening. So if you want to see it in person, you can go to Acorns and Threads, but I'll throw up a picture. I stitched on that from August 15th through August 19th of 2024 on black 16 count Ada. And then coincidentally, my next finish was my Deadly Aquarium by Lola Crow. So 2024 was the year of Sal's for me. I was working on 3 long-term mystery stitch-alongs, and Deadly Aquarium was, I think, actually the last one I started, but it was also the first one I finished because of the summer timeline. The other 2 were year-long. So this is also on display at Acorns and Threads right now, but I stitched on it from April 20th to September 9th of 2024, and I stitched it on 16 count Fiber on a Whim Cornflower Ada. So it's a little bluer than the called for. I think the called for was a pretty seafoam green. So mine was just a little bit more blue. And it was also cool to get to show that to Amy, the designer of Lola Crow. So very excited about that one. My next finish was a Mount Rainier bookmark by Stitchin' Madness on Etsy. I stitched on that from August 27th to September 27th of 2024. And I stitched that as a gift for my boyfriend for his birthday last year, just on white 14 count Ada. And this was a good experiment in learning how to fully finish bookmarks. And I found some tutorial online. I've been looking for it to try and find it again, but I couldn't find it. But essentially I just iron some interfacing onto the back of my stitching, and then I put some coordinating fabric on the back and just iron it together, and then I just backstitch all the way around the edges to make sure that it stays sealed together. And then usually I embroider someone's initial on the back. And so far they've held up. I haven't heard anybody saying that they fell apart. So that one was really fun. And the back I just picked like a dark green to coordinate with it. And once I finished that, I felt like I could do anything because I knew how to finish a bookmark. So I was like, I can stitch 100 bookmarks now. And I have stitched several since then. So my next finish was another gift. This one is called Mr. and Mrs. by Heart and Hand Needle Art. I stitched on this from September 27th to September 29th of 2024, and this was a gift for my roommate who got married last November. And I stitched it on 32 count Vintage Country Mocha Belfast linen. And for the hearts, I picked my own flosses when I was at Acorns and Threads. So they were Kayla's Rose and Tea Rose, a Dinky Dye silk and a Gentle Art cotton. And this one, I took it to my local framer to get it custom framed because at this point I was not yet comfortable. I knew that my method of just sticking things in was not working, or just like cutting things in and putting them into frames was not working, but I also didn't feel confident enough for a wedding gift to do it myself. So I brought it to my framer, and luckily they had a pre-made frame that fit it perfectly. So I didn't have to pay to have a frame made, but they still did the pinning and cut a mat board for it for me. So that one was really beautiful, and I was very proud to give it as a gift for my friend's wedding. And my next finish was Peace to the World by the No Name Stitcher. This was another piece that I got as part of the fundraiser for Doctors Without Borders from Stitchers for Peace. This was a longer term project. I stitched on it from August 20th through October 8th of 2024, and it is on 14 count Ada. I absolutely love this piece. I think the colors are so gorgeous, the gradients, and this is another one that I have the dimensions in my phone, and every time I'm at a thrift store, I'm on the hunt for a frame for this because I just think it's stunning and I would love to frame it, but so far, no luck. So we'll keep holding out hope. But I would love to stitch more from this designer. I haven't seen a lot more of their stuff, but really a big fan of this pattern. My next finish is from the Fabulous House series. It's number 3, The Greenhouse by Cottage Garden Samplings. I stitched on this from October 9th through October 29th of 2024. And I stitched this on 32 count Storm Lugana by Atomic Ranch Fabrics. I love this color. I would love to find more of it, and because I think it's a nice gray so that the white pops, but it doesn't look gloomy, because I didn't want something that looked too dark and gloomy with this lovely floral greenhouse. I really enjoyed a lot of the Fabulous House series, and I love seeing people stitch them on here, but this is the one that really stood out to me. So this is the only one that I stitched. I did think about trying to chart this little cat into a little black cat, but I was not confident enough to go for it, and also I thought it would just end up being all black stitches, which wouldn't really be as defined, so I have a little orange cat on there. But yes, I love how delicate the stitching is on this, especially like how it looks on the Lugana. That was I don't stitch a lot on Lugana or over 2 on anything, but this was a special one. I think it looks really great. Again, would love to frame it at some point, but we won't hold our breath for that. My next project is Witch's Brew by Tiny Modernist. This is on Craft Store 14 count Ada, so it is very see-through. I got this as a freebie from Starlight Stitchery. Last year I stitched it on November 3rd through November 5th of 2024. And I really like this murky, greeny yellow. I think it's such a great color choice by Tiny Modernist. And I don't know why, but last year when I had a stitching group that I went to every week, and I remember finishing this at stitching group. I had a lot of other projects that I worked on at that group, but I specifically remember finishing this one there. Also, this little spider here, it almost gives me the heebie-jeebies to look at it. It almost bothered me to stitch. So that's how you know it's a really well charted little backstitch spider. So next up, I have a very special one, and this is actually the first stitch along that I joined, but I didn't finish it until later because it was pretty much a year-long stitch along. So this is the James Webb Space Telescope stitch along by Climbing Goat Designs. If you are Sal curious, I highly recommend checking out Climbing Goat Designs because she does 2 large scale stitch alongs every year, and I think her work is just amazing. She usually does one science themed one and one like mythology themed one. So this was her science one of 2024, and I stitched on it from February 7th to November 7th of 2024, and I kept up with the Sal. And then down at the bottom, I did all that back stitching. But I think this one is absolutely stunning. It felt like, other than Crater Lake, it felt like my first major, almost full coverage project. And I think it's a really unique piece. And I have a bunch of fluffs on it. But yeah, I think it looks amazing, and could see myself framing this at some point. Well, I guess I couldn't frame it myself because I don't have any foam core that big, but I think it's very lovely. All right. Oh, the fabric for that is Barefoot Needle Art Sea Lavender Ada. I think it was called for on a more of a bluish fabric, but this is what Starlight Stitchery had in stock, and I think it looks really great. So my next finish is Peacock Pin Cushion by Cottage Garden Samplings. I remember seeing this one when it came out, and I just thought it was so gorgeous. And I bought it at Acorns and Threads, and I bought this fabric there. This is 16 count Rustico Ada. This fabric is a really interesting texture, and I don't know if it was, I think it was this fabric. It was kind of hard on my flosses. Like when I'd pull the flosses through, it would kind of fray them. So I noticed I had to use shorter threads. This dark blue in here is Weeks Dye Works, and I've heard that some people have trouble with Weeks Dye Works fraying on them. So maybe it was that. But I love the colors on this. I think it's just a really cool design, and I will not be putting it into a pin cushion, but I could see myself doing a hoop frame on this. I think that would look really nice, or like a hoop finish. Who knows? Maybe one day. I stitched on that from November 11th through 29th of 2024. And then my next finish was Heartsworn Bookmark by the Gloomy Gremlin, which I got as part of the Spellbound Stitches bookmark book. This was a fundraiser for a few different literacy focused charities. So after I learned how to finish bookmarks, I was so excited, and then I had this huge book of all these bookmarks. So I'm still working my way through a lot of them, but this was the first one I did. I don't know, did I say it's by the Gloomy Gremlin? And I stitched on that from November 29th to December 1st of 2024. And then I finished it for a friend's birthday this January and sent that off to her. I kind of have a mission to make bookmarks for all of my friends now that I have that book and now that I know how to make a bookmark. Okay, next up, I have Blue Gloved Hands and Heart by Notorious Needle. This is also from the Stitchers for Peace fundraiser for Doctors Without Borders. I worked on this from December 2nd to December 6th of 2024, and I think it's really beautiful. I think all these blues in the gloves are really amazing, and again, I just really like the mission of that fundraiser. I love to support a good cause, and it's also a fun way to learn about a lot of new designers. This is another one, the Notorious Needle, who I don't think is I don't know a lot of their other projects, but I love stitching on this one. My next finish was Christmas Hippo, which is by the Blue Flower, and that was another freebie that I got from Starlight Stitchery. I worked on it from December 8th through 10th, and I finished it into a little ornament, but I actually just finished it the same way that I finished bookmarks, but just in a rectangle, and I added a little ribbon. And I gave that to my aunt for Christmas last year when she hosted me for Christmas. And I really liked the shade of red that this pattern had on it. I don't remember what DMC number it was, but it was just a DMC number, but it was this really rich, luscious red. And I thought it was just such a great Christmas red, as opposed to something super vibrant. It was really rich. I really loved using that red. Okay, this next one was a gift from a friend. It was an advent calendar kit. It was a gift from a friend who is not a stitcher but knows that I stitch, so it was very, very thoughtful of her to get it for me, but you could tell that it was very cheaply made. The way that the instructions were written, I should pull it out and read it at some point for you guys because I think you would get a kick out of it. But it was clearly not made by stitchers, but it's this little gingerbread. I stitched it throughout the month of December a little bit each day, and you know, I think it's sweet. It came with this hoop, but I think it would look better in a smaller hoop, but I might try to finish it and to make it into a little ornament at some point. But yeah, I can't say I recommend. I don't think it even had a company on it. Can't say I recommend this pattern, but it was a very thoughtful gift and I enjoyed having a little bit of a daily Christmas stitch. And then this is, my next finish was the Cosmos Bookmark by Tourmaline Pattern on Etsy. I worked on this from December 17th through December 29th of 2024. And I made this, last year I participated in this STEM pen pal program where they pair STEM professionals with middle school and high school science students, and you teach them about different careers in STEM and exchange letters throughout the year. So I stitched this up for my little pen pal and sent it off to them at the end of the year. I stitched it on 14 count black Ada and finished it in my bookmark fashion with some cosmic backing fabric. I was really pleased with that one. I hope that my pen pal loved it. Next up, I have Christmas Tree Forest, which I got as a freebie from Starlight Stitchery. This design is by Una Buena Piazza. I stitched on this from December 29th through January 2nd of 2025 on 14 count Ada. Although I think this would make such a good Advent stitch. I think I counted and there are there are about the right number of motifs on this, and you could customize the colors, make it a temperature stitch or just an Advent stitch. And I think it's so cute, and I might try to finish it into a little ornament. It's kind of big for an ornament, but I might try to finish it for an ornament for Christmas this year. And there are a lot of little, like all the stumps are the same color and there are ornaments on the same color and all the stars. So I traveled like a mad woman on this piece, but that's fine. I just think it's a fun and playful pattern, and I like a lot of her designs. Next up, I have Cape Honeybee. This is a pattern that I got from the Starlight Stitchery Pride bundle. This is by Marumi Designs. This is my first pattern by Miriam, but I hope it won't be my last. I worked on this from January 3rd through 8th of 2025. And it's on the 16 count Forbidden Fiber Co. Spellbound. It took me a long time to find the right fabric for this project, and the fabric I ended up picking is basically white, so I probably could have used white, but since there's white in the design, I wanted something that would be a little bit different. But I really like this design and the geometricness of it, and like I said, I really hope to stitch more Marumi designs soon. All right. Powering on. We're almost there. Next up, I have another year-long sale that I participated in last year. This one is the Queer Flowered Field Guide sale hosted by the Craft Experimentalist. I worked on this from April 2nd, 2024 until January 14th, 2025. And the way that it worked is we got the frame, obviously, and then each month we received the pattern for one of the flowers inside and some information about how that flower is symbolic in the LGBT community. And this is the first project that I started on a higher count. By the time I finished it, I had done a couple other projects, but this is a 32 count Lugana by Atomic Ranch Fabrics. The color is Prairie Land. I want it to look like parchment paper. And this was also my first time doing fractional stitches and doing a lot of back stitching, but I think that it's so worth it. I think it looks amazing. I really love this piece. I have no sewing skills, but I have dreams of making this into a tote bag or something. I just feel like it needs to be seen because it's so beautiful. This border was so intimidating to stitch because there are a bunch of fractional stitches and all of these have full back stitching on them, and also there's just a few stitches of each color in each quarter of the border. But I think it's so worth it. I think this was a labor of love and I'm so thrilled with how it looks. So, highly recommend the Craft Experimentalist. All right, my next finish was Star Cats by Vitalia Mishchuk. I received this pattern as a gift, so I don't know exactly, I assume it's on Etsy, but I don't know for sure. I stitched on this from January 18th through 31st of 2025, and this is my first time that I ever did blended threads, so that was a good learning experience, and also had some French knots and some back stitching. And the two little kitties here just really remind me of my two cats, because I have one slightly bigger and one slightly smaller cat, so I thought this was very sweet and turned out really nice. I don't know how I'll finish it, but I enjoyed stitching on it, and the blended threads really had a lot of payoff in this. I think the colors really blend together really nicely, so it was totally worth it. And nice. Okay, my next finish was Reef Buddies by Lola Cross Stitch. This was the freebie or companion pattern to the Deadly Aquarium, and I stitched it on 16 count Atomic Ranch Hydrangea, and I worked on it on February 4th and 5th of 2025, and I stitched this for the Smalls exchange for the beach retreat. So Acorns and Threads hosted a retreat at the Oregon coast this spring, and I got to go. And this is what I made for the Smalls exchange, and I finished it into a little coaster. I found a coaster that had a cork back so you could put something into it. So I did basically similar to my bookmark finish. I just cut it into a circle and did some backing fabric and sewed it together, and then put it into a coaster and submitted that for the beach retreat Smalls exchange. That's a lot of words. But yeah, really happy with that finish. I might stitch it again because I just think it's a really cute pattern too. So my next finish is Crossstitcher by Una Buena Pieza. I worked on this on February 6th of 2025 on a scrap of 14 count white Ada. This is another freebie that I got from the Starlight Stitchery. I just wanted to have a project to work on, and I thought this one was so cute. I really love the colors in it, and yeah. Okay, another profanity warning. My next project is a middle finger kit. I got this from Subversive Cross Stitch. Someone gave me a gift card to their website, so I decided to buy this because I thought it would be fun to try out tiny stitching. This is on 25 count fabric. I don't know if it's Lugana or Ada or how to tell the difference. But I worked on this on February 7th through 10th, and it's so teeny tiny. I think it's so cute. But this did teach me that I am not a tiny stitcher, and I'm not interested in stitching on 25 count again. I think my limit is 20 count, or like over 2 is I can do higher counts, but yeah, this was a challenge for me, but I think it's so fun. I'm glad I tried it, and I'm grateful that I got to have that kit to try it. And the kit came with a frame, so I do have a frame for this, but I'm not sure. Again, I'm worried about it being too thick if I do the whole framing process, so I'll have to problem solve that another way. All right, we're in the home stretch, I promise. This next finish is Winter Bird by October House Fiber Arts. I stitched on it on February 16th and 17th. And I got this pattern as a freebie from Starlight Stitchery with one of my orders. And this is a 28 count linen. I don't know who the dyer or manufacturer is because I got this I went to a cross stitching store in New Jersey called Stitch by Stitch. And I was talking to them, and at this time I hadn't done any linen stitching, and they gave me this little scrap to try it out on, and so I stitched this little freebie on it. I also have a frame for this one that I got this at a yard sale, but I think it will fit perfectly. Again, I just have to figure out how to get it in there, but I like that design a lot. My next project that I worked on was Heron at Dawn by Max Pigeon from Cross Stitch in the Forest, his book. I got that book as a gift last year, and there's so many patterns in it that I really love and I'm excited to stitch. But this is my first one that I worked on. I stitched it as a gift for my boyfriend who is a bird lover. I worked on it from February 11th through February 21st of 2025, and it was on 16 count white Ada. And I finished it in a modern hoopla frame. So you could just do a hoop finish, even with an oval hoop, and then you can put it in the frame to display it. So I think it looks really nice framed, and I'll definitely be purchasing modern hoopla frames again, because I think they're probably easier to finish in than trying to buy a circular frame and properly frame it. This way you can just do a hoop finish, which I feel confident enough to do, and I think it looks really amazing. My next finish was this freebie from Pibble Patterns. I got it off of their Instagram. This was a cathartic one to work on. It was just a one-day stitch in February on a scrap of 14 count black Ada, but it was timely, and I'm really impressed with all the dimension they got into those flames, so I really appreciated this freebie from them. My next finish was the Mycelium Muse bookmark by StitchSprout that I had as part of the Spellbound Stitches bookmark book. And I worked on this from February 21st to February 28th of this year, and I sent it off to a friend who, for some reason when I saw this pattern, it just made me think of her, so I finished it in my bookmark method and sent it off to her a couple months ago. My next finish was Stitch of Hope by Curio Cabinet Crafts, which I got as part of the Stitchers for Peace fundraiser. I worked on this from March 6th through 13th of 2025, and it's on this Rustico Ada, 16 count Ada, and there's a lot of symbolism in this piece. Each of the little motifs has a different significance, and I also think the colors are really striking on here. And also the way that I stitched it, I did all the colors first and then I did the black last, so it really brought it to life right at the very end. This is another one, I should just find a little frame for it because it's so cute and it's pretty small. Okay, my next finish, I promise we're almost done. My next finish was the Ramadan Tetris Stitch Along, hosted by Lena's Thobe. This took place this year in March during Ramadan, and I stitched it on 16 count Lunar by Bestitch Me with three colors of Dinky Dye silks, and I think it looks really nice. This pattern didn't actually come with any called for colors. She just said to pick 3 colors, and that was very intimidating for me because I like to have guidance, but I'm really happy with how it looks. And this came out one day, one piece for each day of Ramadan, so it came out in 30 chunks, and I worked on it throughout the month. And during Ramadan, I took some time to learn more about Islam and about Ramadan, and I enjoyed stitching this piece along with that. And there's a hashtag 30 Days of Tetris where you can see everybody else's patterns, or everybody else's color selection, so I really enjoy looking at that. I really enjoy looking at that hashtag and participating in the sale. And I really like Lena's Thobe. If you're curious about Palestinian Tetris embroidery, I really encourage checking out her Instagram because she has amazing designs and she has taught me a lot about Palestinian embroidery, and I have really appreciated learning from her. So that was a special finish. And then my final finish for this parade is Modern Beach House 2 by Robin Pickens Cross Stitch. I purchased this at Stitch by Stitch, which is LNS in New Jersey, where I grew up going to the beach. And then I started it at the Acorns and Threads Beach Retreat at the Oregon coast this year. So it's my beach project. And I didn't quite finish it at the retreat, but I finished it, I think, the day after I got home. And this is on 16 count Atomic Ranch Ocean Sand Ada. So it's I don't know if it'll come across, but it's a light blue. And I just love this seaweed. I think it's such a impressive effect. And I also love seashells, so I really enjoyed stitching that seashell. And I have another Robin Pickens beach project that I kitted up when I visited Stitch by Stitch in New Jersey, so eventually I'll get around to that one, maybe on my next beach trip. So that is all of my finishes up until I started stitching on Carnival, my big project by Jan Hicks. So that was a beast. Thank you for sticking with me if you did. If you have any questions about any of these projects, I'm happy to provide links. I'll do my best to link things in the notes box, but if you have questions about my fabric or my threads, I'm more than happy to answer. And yeah, I would love your framing or finishing tips in the comments. If there's any of these pieces that you think would look good finished in a certain way, I am all ears and very little skill, so keep that in mind if you suggest anything super ambitious. So yeah, that concludes my finish parade. My next video, I'll be back for a regular Flosstube probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I want to do one end of August / beginning of September. So stay tuned for the next one, and thank you so much for watching.